All right, this old girl's trusty and rusty. You're gonna find common rust points on these, on your GMT 800 Chevys, which are good trucks. We'll get into that a little bit. Commonly on where this frame rail kicks down right here, where you're gonna have rust. You obviously need to watch. I mean, this is a 260,000 mile truck. It's been around. I had new shocks put on it. Looks like the upper A-arm is pretty crusty, but I mean, 260,000 mile Michigan truck kind of is what it is. So keep that in mind. This was my better half's grandpa's truck. He went hunting with it his whole life, and now we have to go hunting with, and we love it. Commonplace for Chevy rust. Also common to have frame cracks in that general area. Also common to have frame cracks right above the tire on the frame, especially by these holes in the frame. Common back here too, and common for your leaf spring hanger to fail. Excuse me, your shackle, but also common for the frame mount to fail. So keep that in mind. Definitely things to avoid. These half-ton Chevys have a place. They're cheap. They're honestly really pleasurable trucks to drive. If you have a good functioning 4L60E, it's actually a really nice truck to drive. 5.3 is plenty of power. They do a pretty good job. Also common for the rear bumpers to rust out. Common on this. That plate isn't even up to date at all, so don't bother trying to do anything with it. This truck has a topper. I absolutely love it. It's a good way if you wanted to kit out a truck. If you don't need to tow or throw, you don't need to tow a gooseneck or fifth wheel. If you want to put a topper on your full-size truck, you are in good shape. They are super duper awesome vehicles. This is a GMT 800 platform. The plus side is that they have LS engines. This truck, you could get it with a 4.8 or a 5.3. Later on, you could get later half tons with the Vortec Max 6.0. I don't have a whole lot of experience with, or especially not a whole lot of good experience with the GMT 900 and K2XX half tons. There's lots of things about them that are a little squirrely. They're probably better used as a street truck. There's not a whole lot of super duper aftermarket support in terms of really making them tough. You can certainly do it, but these guys have a lot of support. As far as I know, you can still get a front locker for this. I haven't looked into it, so don't super duper quote me. I guarantee you can build this rear axle. You can directly swap a full floater into the back of these trucks. So if you wanted to get one of these, and you could swap a 14-bolt full floater from a Chev into there, and she's going to work. Now, your limitation is going to be IFS on a half ton, and on these tires, which I swear by, these are stock size 265 75 R16s stock wheels. I love these wheels. They just have they look good. You know, they got a little bit of a tough, I don't know, just kind of a nice look to them. I like them. And I love, if you're going to have one of these trucks, I think this is kind of the setup where it makes the most sense. Stock height, good enough tires to get you some places. These all-terrains work amazing in snow. They're good off-road as long as you don't sink it in mud. But they do honestly work okay, especially in a light rig. Half ton is a lot lighter. Your biggest selling point of getting a half ton is the lightweight. I don't want to fully recommend one of these. I'm more using it as a visual aid to talk about Chevs. Your tire rod, see that skinny little rod right there? Honestly, on a half ton, I don't really know of them being a super crazy problem. You're dealing with smaller tires, less torque, less driveline, or more torque controls to limit driveline torque. I'm not a super big lover of IFS at all. In fact, I really don't like it. But in this arrangement of a relatively stock, not crazy tire on stock wheels, so you don't have a whole bunch of offset, which puts a lot more load on the steering system and on the ball joints and all that fun stuff. If you keep it relatively stock, you can go out and have a good bit of fun with these trucks. They're going to have a G80. If it still works, great. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to swap something in. So you can't do something as simple as a lunchbox locker on these. Unfortunately, because they have a G80 diff in the back, you need to have an open differential in order to do a lunchbox locker. The center link on half tons is certainly not... Oh boy, it's hidden. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, now it looks stupid. There you are. They're honestly not that bad for the weight of these trucks. Can you see it a little bit? Oh boy, it's hard to see. Bum, 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 bum. Boy, it's hard to see. They actually have this thing pretty well protected. That big bar is the sway bar you're looking at. I'm trying to get you a picture of the, it's a little farther back. You're just gonna have to trust me. I don't really see them fail too much. I'm not gonna lie. I also don't see these wheeled super hard. But you could get into one of these, especially one as rough as this one. $1,500, honestly. $1,500, $12, or maybe $2,000. This is 261,000 miles. It honestly works really well. I would take this thing to tracking for sure. I would take it on fire roads. Wouldn't really want to wheel it, but it's a good entry level. Kind of the same feeling on 2500s. I will say the 2500 center link is a beast. I don't see them fail too often. What fails is other steering parts. Tie rod ends are a little small. On a half ton, these tie rod ends, I don't really see them fail that much. Honestly, pretty stout for the way that this truck is set up, and I think that this is kind of the best use for one of these older half tons. Could absolutely straight axle swap one of these. You could either do full floater in the back and do a 1-ton axle up here. Anything would be a huge upgrade to a Chevy. A Dana 50 Ford would be a massive upgrade to the front of even a 3500 Chevy. Definitely optional. The snow's melting and I'm finding nonsense in the yard here. I wish I had my HD here because it'd probably be a little bit better visual aid. But your rear ends on a 2500 and 3500 HD, they're pretty strong. They're certainly strong enough for within reason. They're going to have a G80 in most cases too. If your truck came with an open differential, you could put a lunchbox locker in it. You can certainly get your ARB, your Detroit locker, a spool. I mean, I don't really know why you'd want to have that necessarily in this application, but E-locker. I already said ARB. And your Grizzly stuff, your Yukon gear, other types of lockers. Pretty sure you can get an aux locker for it. The 2500 version of this, the rear axle has a lot of options. In the GMT 800 platform, you can get an E-locker for the front of these trucks. As far as I know, you can't get an E-locker for GMT 900 and up front ends. Back end, you certainly can. Can't get a front locker for the newer trucks, 07 and a half and up. As far as I know, last time I checked, you couldn't. You're also going to be abusing IFS pretty severely with a front locker unless you wheel extremely carefully. This truck's kind of, in my opinion, these half tons are best to range, kind of like this. Stock height, decent tires, you drive them nicely. You could get out, throw a cooler in the back, bring a tent, and go out and have some fun. You're going to do okay. You should be able to air down these 16s pretty well. You could bring some traction boards along. You could bring along, or you could put a 2.5-inch hitch receiver and bring a hitch-mounted winch. You could have a bumper on one of these with a, you probably only need to have an 8,000-pound, Warn winch or a decent winch, Schmitty built. Honestly, Badlands, whatever, just a winch that you've tested to know that it works. You could kit this out for a little bit of fun. You do not need to have the craziest thing on the trail, especially if you're just going to go out and go explore in two-track. There's plenty of easy trails in every state in this country. There's lots to see. You don't necessarily need to have the baddest cream of the crop beast there is. So Chev is an option. Great motors on the 2500 HD. The 4L80E is a great trans. I don't really trust this transmission as far as I can throw it. I kind of keep hoping that it's trucking along. Maybe I'll swap an 80 in if it fails, or maybe I'll just have the 60E built really well and go from there. This truck works really well with it's 373 gears, which are perfect for the 60E with these size tires, and a 5.3. This whole platform, as it sits, is really good. You could look into a 1500 HD to get a 6.0 and an 80E, but you're going to have a semi-float rear end. You can't get like a heavy half in just a 1500. You have to go to 1500 HD. It's kind of weird because 1500 HD is arguably heavier duty than a 2500 non-HD. They had some weird stuff in there. If you're going to get into that, you need to do a lot of research. There's some strange, like Ford did some really weird things in the early 2000s too, in late 90s. The F-150 and the 250 7-lug F-250 thing that was based on an F-150. There's some weird stuff that happened. So careful you don't get into just a really squirrely platform in the early 2000s. I quite like 01 and 02 2500 HDs. Mine's an 02, has a cable-driven throttle body. It doesn't really matter that much, but the electronic one is another thing to fail, and honestly, I like the way LQ4s run with a cable throttle body. Pretty brainless to tune one of those because you're not dealing with you're also having to deal with the throttle opening to tune that. It's another thing you're gonna have to deal with a electronic throttle body. Certainly you can tune out all the garbage, but I like 01 and 02s. Your 99 and 2000 6.0s are going to be iron-headed. I've never used one. Honestly, I wouldn't mind screwing around with one. I know you're going to be better off with the aluminum heads. But I certainly wouldn't mind screwing around with one. Maybe they're really tough because they're iron-headed. I don't know. But that was kind of a weird thing. Probably stay away from 99 and 00 if you care anything about performance, because you're going to have iron heads and they're not going to work as well. These are good trucks, but use them with common sense. It's not like buying a Super Duty or a new Dodge where you can have something that's really can be built into something crazy. You're going to have to spend $3 or $4 grand to bulletproof front suspension on these trucks, and even then, they're really not that bulletproof. And a straight axle swap, you're going to be in, by the time you do it, $3 or $4 grand. To do it right, you could certainly do it on leaf springs. And I'm not saying leaf springs are wrong, but you could, get some hand-me-down leaf springs. Maybe you use a spring hanger from a Ford or something like that. You could put something together with an axle for probably $3 grand, and do some good stuff. You could Dana 44 swap, like a 10-bolt. The only problem is you have passenger side drop on a 10-bolt, so you'd want to go with like a Ford Dana 44. Then you're going to have to change over to Chevy's 6-lug pattern, which is a whole pain in the butt. You could 8-lug swap it. Anyway, you can do something with these trucks, and you can certainly just go wheel them as they sit, especially because if you're going to pay $1,500 for one of these things, I think they're a lot more truck than that. I think they're more truck than what they're worth. Just go out and have fun with the way it is. If you run a tree down the side of it, do you really care that much? These are good trucks for that. So definitely an option. Perhaps I wouldn't want to drive this 300 miles, go beat the tar out of it for a weekend, then drive home. Definitely wouldn't recommend doing that. Put it on a trailer and bring it up north, or bring it wherever you guys go for fun. Maybe you're in a more southern state where you go south to have fun. I have no idea. Here in Michigan, when we say go up north, it means we're going to go out and have fun. So when I say that, keep that in mind. These are good trucks. I'm going to move on to the Dodge because really I'm more recommending a Ford platform or a Dodge platform. I don't want to leave the Chev guys out. There's a lot of redeeming factors here, having an LS already installed in your truck instead of having to swap it. But there's a limitation with the Chevy front end. It's just kind of the way it is. And these half-tons having those little 10-bolt rears, they're not super strong. You could certainly put a locker in a 10-bolt and maybe some axle shafts. But you're still going to have the high probability of breaking a rear axle shaft in one of these. Now, I'm not talking about 2500 or 3500 HD. Those have full float, 14 bolts, super duper strong. And they can be built to be wicked, stupid, crazy strong. So don't worry about those. Another option might be, the 2500 Suburban. Those were a little bit weird, or 2500 Yukon, because with a 6.0, you only got a semi-float rear end like a 2500 non-HD. Basically, they were like 2500 non-HDs. So you still got a 6.0 and an 80E, or you could have an 8.1 and an 85E in later years, or an 80 in the earlier years of the 8.1. I wouldn't really care which one you have. You could build each transmission to have similar capability. Your biggest issue is going to be, I believe it's a 5-pinion planetary versus a 3. I forgot if it's second gear or whatever the heck it is, but I'm not a big transmission expert. So all I'm getting is 85E is probably stronger, but I've never really had a problem with 80Es. I would put a Duramax or a Cummins in front of an 80E all day long and be confident with it. So there are certain people who swap diesels into a 2500. I'm not sure I'd put a Cummins into one of these. Front ends are going to not like you. Could straight axle swap. It could do a lot of things. I'm going to move on. You guys, I hope, get the picture. Like this, but it's not the cream of crop. Definitely would rather recommend you buy a Ford or a Dodge if you're going to build or if you're going to just go wheeling in it, buy it and go. So take that for what it's worth.